Hello and welcome to the Feast of the Epiphany. This is one of the oldest feasts in the church. In the early church in antiquity, the Epiphany celebrated three miracles: the visit of the Magi, the wedding at Cana, and the baptism of the Lord. So as we celebrate this Feast of the Epiphany, have this in mind that the Epiphany will continue through the baptism of the Lord and through the wedding at Cana. Now, I'm going to ask you a question as we reflect on Epiphany. Have you ever found yourself in the right place at the right time, where the timing could not have been more perfect? I want you to hold that memory or to go back to that memory, because that memory or that event is so filled with divine intervention. We often talk about it in passing, like, oh, I was at the right time, at the right place, I said the right things at the right time. But those moments, I want you to go back and reflect on those moments, and you will find that those moments are like a wellspring where you can go back over and over again and drink from that, knowing that somehow God intervenes in our lives. So as we celebrate the Feast of the Epiphany, I have two stories, and I'll keep bouncing back and forth, including the Feast of the Epiphany with these stories. The first story was told me by a man by the name of Tom Atkins. He's an attorney here in Louisville. He used to work in Paducah, and I'm sure I've told you this story before. He used to work in Paducah, and he was arguing a case against for the sisters, and the judge was a very difficult judge. He knew this judge to be quite particular about things. So he would give instructions to Mother Superior on what to say and how to say things. But Mother Superior was not good at listening. She made things extremely difficult. And Tom, knowing this judge, just knew this case was going wrong. And if sister would only listen just for once, take instructions and just do what he's asking her to do, say what, but she wasn't, Mother Superior, right? So on Judgment Day, Tom was driving to the courthouse, he said, and it was a rainy day. And he lifted up a prayer to God as he was driving up to the courthouse. He said, Lord, please help the judge. Despite what his Mother Superior has been doing, please help the judge see it our way. And when he said amen, he had come down the hill and it stopped raining. The clouds, there was an opening in the clouds, and a ray of sunlight was shining on the courthouse. And when he saw that, he almost froze as he was driving to the courthouse. He said, oh my gosh, God just answered me. The judge is going to rule in our favor. He drove down to the courthouse. The clouds covered the heavens again, and it continued raining. With his umbrella, he gets into the courthouse. And surprisingly, the judge saw the case in his favor and the sister's favor. And he said to me, when I saw the sunlight beaming on the courthouse on a rainy day, it had stopped raining, that was my answer. Now, I have several questions I need to ask you. Is it uncommon, in your experience, is it uncommon that on a rainy day, sometimes the rain stops? Is that uncommon? Most of you will say, no, that's not uncommon. In fact, today was a rainy day, and many times it stopped raining. Is it uncommon that sometimes when it is raining, it stops raining and the clouds part and the sunlight comes shining through? Is that an extraordinary event? Frankly, it is not. So this is a very normal occurrence. But for Tom, because of what he was praying for and what happened in that moment, it became more than a coincidence. It became a God incident, because in that moment he felt God answering him when he said, Lord, help the judge see it our way, and boom, immediately the heavens open, the sunlight comes down, shining on the courthouse. God saying to Tom Atkins, I hear your prayer and I will deliver. Another question. Was that sunbeam really shining on the courthouse as he was driving down? Maybe there was a house next to the courthouse. Maybe somebody, in fact, how many people in Paducah that day saw that event and paid any attention to it? Probably everybody in Paducah. But not everybody was saying this prayer. Things did not line up just perfectly for everybody as it did for Tom. Hold that story. Second story. Several years ago, I was driving this Audi that had an oil leak. And every Sunday, when I go to Lebanon, Kentucky, I would go to the Walmart to pick up some oil to put in my car. I had to put oil in my car every single Sunday. I could get the oil at the gas station, but the gas station was $9.99 and Walmart was $6.99. Being on a budget, I go to Walmart. So I was at Walmart in Lebanon, and I'm picking up my oil, and I looked over. I see this young lady whom I knew from St. Augustine. She just was beelining to a certain aisle. It's like one of those days where you wish nobody you know sees you at Walmart. She looked quite disheveled, actually. Anyway, I picked up my oil, and as I was heading out, I see her squatting down there trying to get some things. So I walk behind her, and I like pranking people, right? And I stand behind her, and I say, Michelle. She turned around, white in the face, like a deer in headlight, as you say in English. She almost fainted. Then she jumps up, gives me the biggest, longest, like choking hug. I'm like, okay. And then she looks at me and she says, oh, Father Chibundi, you are my answer from God. And I'm like, I'm just here to pick up some oil. I have no idea what you're talking about. And she goes on to tell me that morning she's going through some stuff, right? And as she was kneeling down getting whatever she was getting, she just said to God, Lord, you don't even know my name anymore, in frustration. And in that moment, when she just said, Lord, you don't even know my name anymore, I'm standing behind her and I'm saying, Michelle. How scary is that? That's why she almost fainted, because the timing could not have been more perfect. Can you imagine? You're saying to God, Lord, you don't even know my name anymore, and you hear this African voice, Michelle, and I was being dramatic, by the way. I was like, Michelle, being silly. What is happening? There is obviously an inner journey that Michelle is going through. And then somehow out here, it lines up with Father Chibundi on a Sunday at Walmart trying to get some cheap oil. And then me, Father Chibundi, trying to prank her and to scare her. I'm trying to be silly, but she's going through a moment and she is in prayer. And in that prayer she says, Lord, you don't even know my name. And then her name is called out in an African accent. God must be African. But I love these moments. A total coincidence, or maybe a total God incidence. Now, let's go to Epiphany. What is happening in the Epiphany is that there is obviously an inner journey that these three magi, or that the magi are going through. I can tell you for a fact that the baby that they met in Bethlehem was not beaming with sunlight. He was an ordinary baby. And his parents didn't put him down and were worshiping him. They were probably holding him and rocking him. He was like any other baby, Jewish baby born in Bethlehem at the time. What made him so different that the Magi would fall down and offer him these gifts of frankincense, myrrh? What is happening? Epiphany happens because there is an inner journey that links up with an outer journey. So the Magi are going through something. It depends on where they are in their faith journey at that moment. And things lined up so perfectly when they met the child Jesus, and they recognized that child Jesus, or they recognized this moment as a God-filled moment. Now let's go back to your story. Tell me about your story. When things lined up, that it must have been God. Either you said the right thing at the right time, or you were in the right place at the right time, and you are going through an inner journey, through a revelation, and something meets up or lines up out there. And in that moment, God happens. And this is why I love these moments. I can go back to thousands of times when I have preached a homily, and after a homily, somebody walks up and says, "Oh, Father, you were speaking directly to me." No, I wasn't. I just prepared a homily. But you are going through a journey, and God knows that journey, and God places the right words in my mouth, or in another preacher's mouth, or in another person's mouth, or have things ever lined up for you? Go back to that moment, because that is moment of epiphany. That is filled with God's presence. So what we are celebrating today, and what I invite you to do as we celebrate this Feast of the Epiphany, is not only to think about the Magi 2,000 years ago who followed a star, and that star led them to the child Jesus, and how wonderful that story is, and it is a beautiful one indeed, and probably a true story. I want to go to your story of Epiphany. What led you somewhere? Yes, the Magi are led by a star. They are not the only ones who see this star, but because of their faith journey, it means something. Tom Atkins sees the sunbeam. He's not the only person who sees the sunbeam on a rainy day in Paducah, that day, that year, that moment. But because he's going through an inner journey, it means something. So many times in my life, things have lined up. My journey to the United States, things lined up. So, the Feast of the Epiphany is a moment for you and I to stop and revisit those moments. Especially, we revisit those moments when the well is dry, when we don't feel presence, when we are going through the dark night of the soul and we wonder if God is paying attention. Go back to those moments, that moment when things lined up for you, and you will find in that moment enough grace to carry you through the dry spells, to carry you through the difficult moments. Today the Magi follow the star and they meet the Lord. May people follow the star that is you. May people follow the smile that you bring into the world. And this may sound even stranger. May people see how you suffer, how you handle pain and disappointment, and come to find the Christ child. Because everything that happens in our lives, whether it be a moment of great revelation or moment of great pain, that has power and potential to lead others to Christ. And that is my prayer during this Epiphany day. I want to be the star, either through my moments of success or through my moments of great failure. During moments when I am the most holy and moments when I fall short. I want when they follow that, they find Christ. I strongly believe this, that people who come here to Rabuni, that they will find something special. But more importantly, I'm really want to talk to you about your journey. May you sit with that journey. May you sit when these moments line up for you and recognize that God is saying something. God has been saying something to you, that, you are God's vessel, whether you know it or not, whether you do it willingly or not, that you are God's vessel, and God is leading people to the God self in and through you. God bless you, and cannot wait to see you this Epiphany. Amen.